Hey, what's good, everybody? My name's Alckemy. Welcome to the channel. Today, you and I are going to be taking a look at the random plugins from Beatsurfing. I want to open up this video or this review to kind of clarify what these are. And let me preface this by saying I actually hopped on a call with the developers and the people from the company because they were like, we can't really just type this out and explain to you what this is. I can tell you what it's not. It's not a sampler. It's not a rompler. It's not, something that is just hey, let me put a few samples in this and then, allow you to change the pitch and stuff. All of these are actually almost like individual synths. So what I mean by that is all of these here are separate engines that I think the best way that I could describe them are these conglomerates of systems, if you will, of like imagine having 20 plus reactor, devices that all do a little bit different stuff. There is an ethos behind this stuff to where some of these parameters that you utilize, like the spike and the bleed and all that, do the same thing. So there's like everything has a few like parent parameters, but these are indeed synthesizers. If you're not sure with what random is in the first place, the whole thing with this, as you can see, because they are very similar, is that I would say this one is designed more for a wider variety of sounds. For example, like bass. Let me kind of drag this over and utilize this one. Very metallic textures. You can also get, really crazy distorted leads. And then this one on the other side would be more for creating snapshots for percussion. So if you look at this, you've got slightly different variations of this. Both of these have this random knob to where you can hit this on all of these, or you can randomize, the individual parameters and stuff to create different versions of this percussion. Then you can have an XY slider to change the timbre. And then you've got these individual controls that you can utilize to, stretch it. You can bleed it, you can change the pitch, you can also have a little bit of this. Something that's cool with this as well is you have something that has deviance and this one has instability. And the cool thing about what this means is that it will slightly change the way that it's expressed every time you play it. So if we go back over to this one here, sorry, I need to have a more elegant way of switching behind these. Maybe I'll just do this one. Then what we can do with this is if you listen here and we change the instability up, then it's going to be different every time you actually hit the same key. So and then of course you can hit random to totally change all of the internal parameters and stuff on the inside. So and then the deviance is how much do you actually randomize the sound parameters that you have in. And I will also say that whenever you do randomize this, it will in certain cases flip some of these macros and stuff, but I'm pretty sure that this is doing more behind the scenes of what's happening. So on one end, it is kind of a bummer that I can't get behind here and open up and look at the routing and be like, oh, what is this doing? But this is something that's a combination of feedback delay, of off timing of FM, so different ratios and stuff. It was explained to me that it's an integer that has a specific offset ratio to be able to tune this and blah, blah, blah. But those are some of the things that, of course, I would love to control. But I think that what Beatsurfing was trying to do with this is give you something that were these complicated sounds without you having to go and be like, well, I mean, in contrast, something kind of like this. Um, looking at this, and let's say you're brand new to sound design, and even just having a look from here and being like, what is this? What am I looking at? And changing this into something that has all of these effects and being like, what do I do with this? That's not a knock towards kilohertz and faceplant, but the reason why I brought that up was because the reason why I actually liked and wanted to reach out to these people was because it felt like they did something that I do in something like faceplant and then changed it into a plugin that's way easier to use. And for a lot of people, that's something that I think that they would want. If I had a way to change my patches and stuff into a plugin that's just like, look how fun and interactive it is to use, that's something that, you know what I mean, that I think that it would be a lot easier for people to digest. Because let's face it, most people are not, into the kind of sound design like you and I are. I'm talking to my subscribers, right? Because we get very intricate with the things that we do. So, all in all, the actual timbres and the textures of what this stuff does is basically it's random, but it's also more metallic and more resonant with some of this. So, and like I said, all of these are different engines that you can utilize, and they're also kind of, changed with or symbolized with these different, I don't know what this is, stuff, matter, texture. It's giving venom. It's giving, I don't know what this is, but you can see that it's completely different, and all of these are different shapes in order, or sorry, different I don't know, blobs, if you will, for the most part, to kind of help you distinguish what's doing what. But as you can see, you can get some pretty gnarly stuff from this. It's a little quiet, but this is a great starting point to kind of, throw some other stuff onto it, which we'll talk about here in a second. And the same thing with this, you have this different organic matter or whatever, and you can change behind all of these other things that will kind of give you an idea of what they're supposed to be. Perk drum, a lot of these are drums, but that's totally fine. Claps, some of these are hats and cymbals, and work with that. One thing that I do want to clarify is that within these pads, these are all based off of the same engine. So you can't have, radionium on this one and then this one is going to be a different engine. It would be really cool if they did that. I wonder if maybe there's some kind of CPU issue, although it seems like, yeah, it seems like the CPU usage on this it's next to nothing, which is great. And then with this, of course, with both of them, you've got some advanced controls that you can start to change this and whatnot. So some updates that I would like to see with this are a couple of things, which I'm going to review their 7 deadly snares in another video, but I would like to see just some more dramatic settings for transient shaping, for clipping, like a built-in clipper slash limiter, and stuff that kind of really helps make this like push out. And the reason why is because where I think this fits best is actually not on its own, but either um, layered or layered with something like a fundamental. So if I go to random metal here, random metal snare maker, I have something kind of like this, which this is a snare. So, this is something that I utilize something like different polymers and whatever to design. But now that I have something like the metal, what I can do is place this on top and develop this with other textures. So, and what I can do is open this up and change this from different stuff. So I really liked that last one that we did. Thankfully, I have rolling sampler going, and so I can figure out which one that is and take that and be like, oh, well, look, I've got, a different snare maker now for these different textures and stuff that I can utilize to create different versions of this. You know what I mean? And so because of that, and you start thinking about how you can use this to combine with other elements, there's a lot of things that you can do with it. The other thing that is a lot of fun is having something kind of like a sequencer. So if I go, I've already got one, I'm sorry. If I go stepwise, which is the new Bitwig thing, I want the drum version. And the reason why I use the drum version is because of the MIDI routing. So all of this is set to the first octave. So I throw a random metal on this, and you can do this with random as well, but this is just a little bit easier to use. But let's say I have something like this, and then I throw on aforementioned clipper and just crank this. Maybe what I'll do is use a transient control and go here and turn this here and turn this here, and then I'm going to show you this, but this will start to take away from the point of what this is meant to be about. But I have something called drum mangler, where it's just an effect rack for different percussion sounds. So I would have something kind of like this. And what we can do now, though, is we can change this and start to create different drum loops. So let's just put this on a 2. Let's make it a little bit early because that's what we do here. So we like the wonkiness. And so now I can utilize a sequencer on here to then what I can do is start to change things off as well. So if I go like this, Shift Command R, then this is going to move all the offsets, and I can start to utilize this for different, you know what I mean, textures and stuff. So the snare is getting a little annoying, but you can kind of see that with this, we've got something that I can utilize here to start getting organic textures and loops and whatnot. And that's really helpful for trying to get a track started, right? So then we have something like the Mangler over on here where we take things a step further, which I've got masterclass tutorials on all this stuff. And we start doing something like this. I'll turn the snare back on. And we can start changing this even more. Sorry, it's a little bit resonant, but yeah, as you can see, we can change this even more into different stuff. We can use, you know, what's it called? Frequency shifters and convolution reverb and delays and all that other stuff to start getting different variations of this sound. And the reason why that's so cool is because it continues to evolve over time. And so if I'm kind of messing with something there to where, let's say maybe I have this automated with a random, no pun intended, and I do something like this, and that's kind of doing its own thing. And then with this, I need to turn this off like that. I set this to go here, and then I change this to quarter note, and set the resonance to be a little bit lower on a bipolar mode. Then while all this is moving, I have this map to Shift Command R, shout out to Cage for that, to be able to do stuff like this with controller scripts. That's a really cool thing. But yeah, with this metal stuff, now I can mess around with this and start to try to get different things as well. So let me go ahead and take the extractor off. And then from having all this stuff, I can pull this out and go into more things of like, you know, take this, Command B, right click, normalize, okay, turn it up. And I can start to do things with like setting this to a repitch and moving this out. And now I'm just getting different variations of this that I can use to start building my track off of. You know what I mean? So random metal is probably like going to be the more useful one to me personally, but I wanted to kind of show you this to not only say like, hey, here's what this can do, but also how I would use this in context for, you know, other stuff. So let's go ahead and bounce over to random now again, and I want to talk about some of the different things that this is useful for. The one drawback with this is that sometimes it takes a minute to get to the fundamental. So if you listen to this, oh, sorry, this is soloed, but see, it went, sometimes that is something that kind of pigeonholes it into development around certain contexts, because you need to get to the fundamental a little bit sooner if you're trying to use this for especially like fast phrasing of basses and stuff. I mean, something that you could do is just wait till it gets to the fundamental and then pull that out and then throw that in a sampler, or it also has drag to export, which is really nice, so you can just pull it out. But where that does work really well is if you set the stress and I believe the bleed and this to be relatively slow, and this will be a little bit more akin to high resonances and stuff that will be like leads, or you can do percussion with this for sure, but the leads and stuff like that will kind of make it a little bit more interesting. All of these have specific settings on them, like the color and the spike and the bleed, and then if you look at the bottom, you can see that there are an inspector panel, or like a a hint guide, I guess, that tells you what this stuff does. So this will make it a little bit brighter. This is the harmonic color. This is more for bass. This is more for shrieky, crazy stuff. I do think that this is a shelf, if I'm not mistaken. This is the resonator amount. This is the decay. Yeah, sensitivity. We don't really care about that. And then you have matter automation, which I don't actually know what that does. I'd have to look at the manual. So with that though, we can kind of set this to we just have like this cool little metal plank or whatever. So if we set this to be a little bit shorter, or maybe even we do something like this where we turn the resonance. Yeah. Okay, there we go. We got a track. So if I were to do something like this, where we go here and we do the same thing. So let me just record that out. And then we go like that. And then I might need to change the timing of this. But what we can do is, for the sake of time, I'll just go in here and drag in a cool little thing that I pulled out, which I think is this. Yeah. So we've got ourselves a little drum loop that I made. And then we can kind of just shape this to fit in with this drum loop and kind of utilize this as like a... Okay, then we can grab, I like where this is going actually, we can grab another random, and this is the part that I wanted to talk about with why this might be useful for, or why I would like that sub feature, or that maybe just like add in a bass or something to where, or a way that it will get to the fundamental a little bit faster. We can pull up any of this stuff, but what I'll do is I'll fish for a bass. Nice. Now I want more bass out of this, so... And one thing that would be cool with this as well is maybe just like some dedicated effects. So like, for example, I want more distortion. So what I might do is grab the filter here, and this is just going to put this up. I'm going to grab a clipper. Very typical things that I use a lot, but we can set this to makeup. I don't know how loud this is going to be, but... That's interesting. Yeah, I guess now this is kind of leading me down a different road, but what I'm going to try to do is see what this is doing. See all that? We might want to take that out. So that way this isn't, it would be intermodular distortion, but this isn't eating this. Nice. Some pitch control would be cool. So that way I can actually make it into an 808, but the texture of this is still really cool. And like, you can always layer this with other stuff, I could put a kick under it and make it go boom, and there would be some phase stuff that I would have to manipulate, but what we can do is just pull this down a bit and pull this down a bit. And then I'm going to make that a little bit sharper. And then what we can do is just kind of set this to be an 808 that's going to play along with the kicks. So if I set this here, this is just a boom. And then what I'll do is just look at this here, and now I can just copy this rather than try to like map this out. And then I'll just be like, we can put that there. We can put that there. Then duplicate it. We can pull this out very quickly. Pull this here. And then, yeah, that's pretty close. So yeah, now we've got something that is, you know, there's no side chaining over this or whatever, but let's say we do that, and then let's say we throw a fuse compressor over this, and now something I am curious about is whether or not this has pitch bend. I don't know if it does, but let's find out. Because if it does, then that would be cool. I don't think that this has MPE built into it, but let's see if this will pitch bend. Yeah, so what we would want to do is probably balance this out in audio and then, you know, utilize the thing. I don't have a mod wheel or a pitch wheel, so I don't know if that would actually work. But, you know, being able to kind of play with that. And then something that we can do is just elaborate on it, right? We've got the main hits, and then now we can have the fills. We can do something like that. And then maybe what we can even do is bounce this and then hit R on this. Whoa, look at that bias. Whoa. We can even do something like this, and then maybe we can even kind of lead that into the next one. And then maybe something like this to where I can pitch this now, kind of like that, and just cool. So I would have to change the timing and make everything a lot tighter in order to get the actual pocket of the groove. But as you can see, it's a very quick, you know, way to utilize something like this and get some ideas going or whatever. So with that, I think that, you know, for the metallic textures and all that other stuff, you know, this is a really good starting point with what these do. I think that's the key to this. I definitely think that this plugin, especially for the kind of music that I make, needs, give or take, you know, a certain amount of processing. That being said, this produces some sounds that you can't really get through physical modeling. And that's what I love about this. Is it something that I'm going to use on every track? No. Is it something that I might reach for whenever I get stuck and I can't, you know, figure it out, or when I'm looking for metallic textures? Yes. The fact of the matter is that there's not a lot of synths that have the feedback network that this does. And even though it's not ultra controllable, there's only a couple of things that come to mind, like what, Massive X, which has a feedback thing that you can put in the routing, but I think that it's only maybe one instance. Something else that you can do is you can set a feedback routing channel through Bitwig, which I've done through making snares and stuff. So I guess like one thing that you could maybe, you know, consider feedback snare is having something like this to where you've got an effects layer, and then you take an audio receiver, send that to a delay out here, then the delay goes back here to where you've got another audio receiver that goes back into itself. And this is, again, kind of like an introduction to physical modeling. But all this stuff that I'm showing you here is a very simplified version, I imagine, to what this is doing here. And because of that, it makes it a lot more usable. It makes it a lot more kind of like fun and interactive to mess with. And I would actually like to see them do an advanced version. That would be sick for nerds like me, you know, so that way I can actually get in there and be like, oh, how are they applying this stuff? Where's it going? Where's the delay happening to where it's, you know, hitting multiple channels and creating these different unique resonances and blah, blah, blah. That's a part of sound design that I don't think that I've explored much of. I'm a bit scared too, because it's really dangerous. So that's another thing too, is they took the danger out of this stuff. But yeah, that's basically what these plugins do. At a certain point, I'm going to, probably in the next few days, I'll review the 7 Deadly Snares as well, which is another plugin from them. But overall, I think that if you're somebody that really likes that, you know, shit, Chi, John Casey, Cage. There's some other people that make just like the really wonky textured beats and stuff. This is a really cool head start. You need to do more to it, but it's a really cool head start. So that being said, I'm curious as to what you all think. They did send this to me, but they did not pay me. They have no idea what I was going to say. I wanted to review this plugin because I'm enthusiastic about it, not because somebody, slid me some cash or something. So in any case, I hope that you all enjoyed that. Let me know what you think. And yeah, I'll have the other review up pretty soon. Cheers, everyone.